Okay. Let's get this started a bit earlier than intended. I want to waste that pre-roll time. Okay. So hopefully today my keyboard skills are a little bit better because I got my replacement keyboard. Come on, that should work. And then we need natural planning item ID. Here. Okay, so we can now do that. Invalid. What got D? Oh, stuff here. What? Read number, read next token. Is that related to... Okay, so that's related to the routing for... that. So... okay, so the goal of this is that when I navigate into the page, because where is it? With component input binding is there on the router, the routes will provide this. So on the where I've got ID there, it should pass in. And streamer mode. I always forget streamer mode. So let's do it this way. Let's do console.log identifier. Let's verify that part's working. So there we go, we got the ID. So we know that's working. And is that so that's not crashing, okay, so then the idea is that we get single on the store here is going to load one. Now, right now, I'm just going to use the service and pass it through, but ultimately, I'm going to use this to populate more detail on the element that's currently stored in the store, and kind of fill out the detail and patch the state so that the element just gets more data. And then I can avoid loading that again. So the idea here is that I'm going to... This is meant to pull the first value from this. This fetch one is meant to pull a single item. And then let's see if it actually achieves that part. It does not achieve that part. Expected digit but got D. Sorry. So I wonder if that's meant to be there. No. False argument. That's not valid because of that. Passing arguments to GraphQL query. Hold on. So, am I meant to do then have that's what I'm going to do? That isn't. That structure's different. No, I don't need to update data obtained from the data. I need to pass in an argument. Okay, so that's saying that is plotting item by ID identifier. Oh yeah, that works. Okay, let's see what that does. No, that's still errors. Cut D. It's not even getting to where I want it to get. So, modules. That's that. And then the services. Oh my. Why is that not? That's not even taking the change. Variables aren't there. None of those changes are there. Oh, so that would suggest that this isn't building properly. Got to pay attention to this. The type void is not assignable. Okay, so planning item detail component. Hold on. So that's not changed. So here, fetch one. Oh, that's why. No. Right, that's going to be Void is not assignable to planning it. So that's maybe there. That's now a planning item again. But it's still not taken. Why are you not taken? And why aren't you building I mean, that I understand. This is because there's a state in which this object is nullable, but it's not really nullable. So, yeah. Planning item detail component 28. I don't get it. Why are you not building? Okay. So, because it still thinks that's returning void. So it still thinks that in here, this is returning void, even though IntelliSense believes it's not. Let's have a look. No, it still thinks it's doing it. So the planning item store is a promise of planning item. We get single. In here, we get the planning item service we call fetch one. The void. That's an observable of planning item. Let's be explicit about the return type. And in here, there is only that. So how do you still think void is not signable? But it's not the build cache, right? It still thinks it's... So I guess I've got to make a more drastic change. And then in here, it's not planning item equals new. Okay, so that's loading that now. So that allowed the build to go through, basically. So now let's see what happens when I pull that back. Oh, I do not like that. So what went wrong there? The argument ID does not exist. Okay, so in here, we fetch one. Oh, it's because it's that. Okay. So what do we try and send there? Sorry. So over here, if we look at the query, so this is an alias. This means that whatever comes out of this won't be planning item by ID. It'll be planning item. And that's what appears there. So we can validate that this runs. The only difference is here I'm saying planning item by identifier string there, and then saying there. Oh, maybe that's why. And then okay, there we go. So let's go change that to, it knows the difference. So that should be functionally the same, right? Yeah. Nope. Okay, so the planning item's coming back. We're hitting the planning item. Sources, breakpoints. Okay, so we've got this. We pass the variable. We pass that in. We get that back. Do we get to here? Here's the question. Yeah. So we have a result. It is fully valid. But I don't get it. Oh, I get it now. Okay, I'm forgetting about the order of things. So if planning item so I do not want to show the planning item unless I have, there you go. So right now this is going to the server and loading it every time, and the benefit being that now I have the requirements. And I don't want to get the requirements all the time, but I'm going to kind of use this to patch the state eventually. Okay, so let's go and think about how we're going to display the planning items. Tailwind UI. So good or bad, I'm going to continue to use Tailwind for now. It gets me to a place where I can make the UI look somewhat clean. I don't expect this to be the final UI, but I want to get the ideas in there. And ultimately, I'm going to see if I can find someone who can do UI UX and maybe can mock up some really good designs that I can spend time implementing. I feel that that's the best way because I understand the data. I understand what I'm trying to display. I understand what I'm trying to do. So as long as I can make this look somewhat usable, none of it's time wasted. So this is just a header. We now need a list. Description lists. Sorry. Stack list. This is probably more what I want. I don't want narrow because I want to be descriptive. I don't necessarily need links with inline links and actions menus. So the actions maybe. So one option here is I create a control and allow the template to allow me to set the actual item template. Similar to how I do the actual planning items right now. But probably not. Just need something simple for a second with badges, buttons, and actions menu. We don't have a review date on the actual requirements because they're part of the planning item. I think for right now, simple probably does what I need. There's no actions in there. There's no. Let's copy that. So what we do is we go to components and create a new component. And this is list view, simple. Okay, so now this is our layout. Now I know how to do some of the templating stuff better. I need to worry about those buttons still there. So this is kind of similar in that I want to control the display. So we paste that in there. And then list. Actually, this is pretty simple, isn't it? LI. So it's just, this is the LI. So it's for item of items track item. Yeah, similar to this. That is that. So we need a import public item template, which is a template ref. Ready? And we need import public items, which is any, right? I think that covers it. So then in planning item detail, we need a map list view simple. And then we need template, and this is item template equals item template, and items equals planning item dot requirements. I get used to my types. My types in TypeScript. Oh, I forgot to do my. This will be interesting. I only post these in 2 channels. So, array of any? Sorry. Why don't you like that? Where did I do this? I did this somewhere else. Combo boxes. Values any. Items is values. I shouldn't need to care because I know what I'm using in the array. So this should be any, right? So why does it care here? Type requirement Type undefined is not assignable to type any. Or is it because it can be undefined? If yes, because it can be undefined. Okay. So now let's go back here and take contents of the div. Paste them back in. So we have an image. This is going to be item dot. Oh, and there's a way of doing this. Let item. So we don't need that right this second. And this is item that I intended. Template let. Huh. I don't need to worry about that. One of these does. What adds requirements? This might work. There you go. That was pretty good. I like that. So what I'm thinking is ultimately these become tabs. So notes, requirements, or requirements, notes, files, so you can see attached files, etc. That's the goal. But that's not too bad. That's workable. Again, if I go back to here, run that. This is one of the only ones with requirements right now. Yeah, that's the only one with requirements. That's workable. Let's do, just for the sake of learning, let's do some tabs. What do we prefer there? Tabs with underline and badges, that's probably the best version. Yeah, let's not worry too much about that right now. Let's get some. We have no other functionality there, so there's nothing to even put in. So the next step would be, well, first step would be to get this all committed, because I'm being terrible at doing the committing thing. Update that. Stop that running. So again, I did a terrible job yesterday of keeping track of what I was changing, because I was changing so many different things at once that I yeah, 51 files is not a good commit. Let's go and yeah, some of this is namespacing, some of this is actually moving things around. So there's the endpoint for the requirements. Adding the requirements. And add requirements. Requirements can be attached to a plugin. Second. What about the client side separately? Publish integration event and requirements are attached to the item. I like how it reviews the. We got this, we got this, we got this. So let's do the view. Accept updated event. View. Create new envelope items. Don't worry about delete when we get there. Good morning, Mr. Jones. How are you doing? Okay, commit that. technically I should have done this as part of the commit, but it's not really going to make a difference being they're all part of the same batch anyway. So the biggest risk for these are if my message size gets too big. So it's something I'm going to have to test later on. If I had a bunch of requirements and they are massive, they could take up quite a lot of space. Thanks, still want to get rid of this bloody cough. I hear that. Yeah. Canny, hello. How you doing? Yes, the cough going away would be good. Okay, so let's add the views. Update view to include requirements. Add view list component, which is really a simple list, which I probably shouldn't do. Almost done. I wanted to do today, and it's 12:30. Nice. It's a productive day. Wish I had those days. So what I've been working on, let me run this up. What I have been working on for the last couple of days is adding requirements. So requirements are a title and a kind of intended outcome. That's how I've worded it. So the idea being that when you go into your planning item, you add the requirements. You say, okay, this is a requirement. Here's what I expect to happen. This is a requirement. Here's what I expect to happen. And I'm going to kind of iterate over this thought. But the idea is very much that it's meant to help you lay out what you should be expecting to see when this thing comes around. And ultimately, these requirements, when it comes to story planning inside of this, you'll say, okay, well, promote this to a story. I'll promote this to multiple stories, and I'll create a wizard that will allow you to select the requirements. Because the goal of the planning items is to very much help the product team think through the actual thing they're asking for, right? So try and guide them into some path of identifying clear requirements so that when it comes to the stories, the developers can say, well, that, they belong together. They can be one story. We pull them through and generate a story from those requirements, and those become acceptance criteria in the story particularly. And then the same thing. So there might be a dozen or so requirements. There might be more, but yeah. So that's the intention of these things. So we have the API on this side. I can add a requirement, and then it goes through the system and pops out here. And my thought is this screen. I mean, again, the screen, I'm not worrying too much about the design right now, because if I focus on the design, I'm going to get bogged down in all the minutiae of where does this button go? Is this the right color? Is this? And I'm not going to progress with the actual features I need to do. So I'm going to worry about it looking usable, but not nice. And then what I'm thinking I'm going to do is I'm going to save up and see if I can find a UI UX person who is more than happy to look at the application as a whole, go through it and identify a better design. And then I will implement an actual design as a last pass. But I need the features in there. I need to tell the story, right? So we go into a planning item. We should be able to, we'll do a form in a minute for creating a requirements. We've got that path in place, right? So I can go in here And I can very much say, okay, well, hold on, I need to, it's not quite true. I need to get this token. Go over here. Go there. Place that. And then should be able to add the title and the intended outcome. So if I pause that, and it goes green, in a minute or two, what should happen is, or within a minute, I should be able to go back to, because right now it's hooked up to network all the time. Oh, there you go. So I should be able to go into that one. That's interesting. What? Well, that code's not working very well, is it? Huh. Well, that's not optimal. So let's have a look at the database. Oh yeah, I added them all in again. Why do they all have the same identifier? So what should happen? So 4 requirements were published, right? Those identifiers are wrong because what it's done is it's taken the identifier of the planning item. So I've got a missing test somewhere. So let's go and fix that first. So it's on this side. It's not. So by validating that the data is publishing correctly, right? So there's only 4 items there. So on our consumers, we receive the planning item and we pass in, this is a DTO, this requirement here. We pass into the update planning items. And we check it exists by its requirement. And we add new requirement. Let's find a test that validates that before I go too far. So that is a application test. So when requirement already exists and no changes, when requirement exists, title has changed. So we see that we call update on the thing. When requirement does not exist, we call add with the requirement identifier. How does that pass? Does it pass? It doesn't pass. Whoops. So my requirement does not exist. Planning item repository. Dot single default arg any that returns new planning item. So I could have sworn I moved on from those tests. So it's an easy fix, obviously, but I need to validate that I'm going to hit that. I need to validate that case because I'm obviously got a hole. So these are missing because I'm throwing when I get the no planning item. So when I need to configure the planning item in each case. Right, read only int planning item ID equals 9009. So I don't want it to be anywhere near my expected user ID. Right. This doesn't matter. Right. Or it shouldn't matter, let's see. There you go. Okay. So in each case here, where I have a planning item, I need to make sure right. Again, it doesn't matter if there's no data on here. Well, you do Flutter tutorials as well. Flutter is something I want to get back into. Hi X, by the way. When it comes to time to create a mobile client for this, I will probably create a Flutter application. Tutorials, I don't know if there'll be direct tutorials, but they would be, here's how I'm doing things. And there's things from this that I really should pull out as actual individual tutorials, because there's some things that have been very useful with, some of what I've done with this application so far. So there we go. So we got all passing tests now because those are valid, but we still don't have. That's why I moved on from this, because I didn't have. I didn't want to waste time setting up another test, because this is just title has changed, right? So I need to do the same for the outcome and validate that changes. But this is missing something. Actually, the add is the one that's missing something, because the add, how does that get in there? Because the actual handler, when we do update, when we go to add new requirement, so the problem is this. Sorry. So we have a requirement, we have the command. That needs to move to the end as well. That's not good. So how are we calling add and that identifier, which we are matching on here? How is that the same as that? We're passing in planning item identifier there. So this should catch that. So why do you not catch? So we should be able to go here, and now we should be able to debug that unit test. What? Am I missing some behavior somewhere? Did I just remove a breakpoint? I did remove a breakpoint, okay. Debug. Okay, so our command identifier here and our requirement identifier do not match. So our command identifier is 35DEE, and our requirement identifier is 28E78. So how does that pass? Oh, no, I don't want to run. I don't. That was my mistake. Stop. So they shouldn't pass. So I'm not going to stop until this is this fails, because we'll see why that fails. Let's see if that still passes. Oh, I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. I wasn't doing anything. So if you just do something in a unit test and you don't assert anything, it passes. So I didn't set an expectation. I bet this fails now. Maybe you are. That's what that should be. So this should pass now. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just to make sure that these are cleaned up. So now, when we run it again, good day in that. Hi, Fuel Snamble. How you doing? So, because I missed that, it looked like it was passing, and lulled me into a false sense of security. But can you recommend a C# logging library? I normally use Serilog. It's a little bit cleaner and there's a lot more options than there is for things like nlog, etc. I have been contemplating logging Serilog. Because I've been looking at things like open telemetry and stuff and trying to understand, do you still use Serilog? Do you not use Serilog? Does it output to open telemetry too? Are you meant to do it that way? Yeah. Lots of questions there. Yeah, I've had a great success with Serilog because you can just set different configurations. Okay, so I actually don't need the original command in here now. So that's a refactoring we'll do in a second. So all that we're testing here is that we can get the user and we add the requirement and everything comes with the requirement. So, yeah, that's okay. Okay, so if we go back to here, and this might work. Yeah, that initial load's going to be interesting, isn't it? Now we go and add a requirement, and then we'll wait for that to come through. We will have a duplicate now because I've just added the exact same requirement. But yeah, there you go. So when I added that in the API, that published to Kafka, and it took all the current state of the requirements, and then decided they all didn't exist and inserted them all. Right, this is genuine duplication now. But if we go here, they all have different IDs. Awesome. So the way this is working, by the way, is I actually have a GraphQL endpoint set up now for getting an individual planning item by its GUID. So I do have that flexibility now. So when I get planning items, I don't want to load all the requirements all the time because the requirements aren't relevant. Right. I want to just get the planning items. So the intention here is what I'll do is I'll get the planning items, and then when I navigate into a planning item, I will load the extra data and patch that data into my current state of my planning item. That's the intention, so that the store doesn't get bloated initially, but as you go through and work on planning items, it will store that the updated state, so that then I don't have to keep going back and forth, because what I'll do is I'll then mark this object as not dirty or whatever, and then when I add a requirement or I change a field, I'll mark it as dirty so that it'll load again next time it comes around to get it. Because when I patch the store, I'll patch the actual object. When I do the create, I'll patch the entity eventually, and that will mean that I don't actually have to go and make the database call. I don't have to make the call until later. Okay. So right now, when I get a planning item updated, when I add a new item, it will publish the event to say, hey, the planning item has changed. I could also leverage that as well, and then the store would reload its state. Okay. So one thing is clear: this is not ordering by review date. This date here is a review date. I don't need it right this second. That's something I'm gonna have to keep an eye on. So let's go and commit these changes, and then we can work on the flyout for the rest. Okay, so we don't need that. Sorry. Okay, so let's add that. Sorry. Dates, unit tests, tests, did not include planning item. And then, okay. So we're on the home stretch here. Now, one thing that's been going through my head the last couple of days when it comes to this is, did I bite off more than I could chew, right? I had a lot of code to introduce here to get this to work, right? Could that be different stories? Yeah, the API aspect of planning of requirements could be one story. The view aspect could be a different story. Even the client side could be a different story entirely. Hi, Tara. How you doing? So I could have broken them up, but considering the way I have to develop this right now, there's no benefit in trying. The irony of not following a planning process and developing stories that are meaningful and of size is hilarious. But in the same, because I am one person developing this, it makes that process would be incredibly slow right this second. So I think it's more beneficial to do the stories this way for now. Once I get to just adding features here and there, and the structure of the application is a lot more stable, I can definitely see that it's easier to break the stories up a little bit. And again, we'll start using the actual software to see if it's working. So let's get, so we can run all this because the API, oh no, we need one more change. We need one more change. This isn't going to get any less. Okay. So planning API. What's the things? So we need to endpoints. We got requirements now. Items, identifier requirements. So we need to, where did I put it? Did I put it in here? Also configuration. Yes, I did. So whenever I do a new route that the API is going, that the client's going to have to interact with, I have to do this. So what I'm going to do here is add another item. So again, this is post API elements. Nice. Nice. There you go. So the benefit of using the API gateway is I can actually rejig the arguments around later if I want to, and I can change the structure. So this is the call that the client side will make. This is the call that will get passed forward to my actual API, and it will resolve this because the planning items starts up and gets its own thing. So all I need to do is use the actual API. So let's start that up again. Let's make sure Ocelot is running over here. A console, sorry. So we'll open. Why do things not want to open anymore on my machine? I kind of like DuckDuckGo, but it really does not like interaction. So I have to go back to. So this is where that configuration is going to land. So then I'm going to take that, save that. And now on the client, so we can now leave the server running because it's all good. On the client, we can go and actually do our public add new requirement. Okay, so this is going to be so. Let's see if I actually before I go too far with this. Let's see that I actually did make the. No, I didn't do it. Didn't do it. So on a planning item, I return the GUID. And the reason I do that is because then I can track the item in the client. So once I've got the actual identifier of the planning item, I can now hold that in the client, in the store on the client side. And now when I update it or whatever, I can still work with that entity from the store on the client. Even if I don't have it all the way back around in my view data yet, I can still interact with that thing. If I don't have the identifier, I have to hold off until I do have that data. So I'm going to have to make a change here. So let's stop planning items. I'm not going to stop everything because it doesn't make sense. And what I want to do here is add requirement. Is there a test around this? Planning items. Requirement is added. what I'm thinking about is how do I, so I kind of need to test multiple things here, right? I need to test, is the planning item, this object builder builds a planning item, right? And then I want to validate that I've added requirements to it. That's what that's doing. And does it have the right detail? Which isn't bad. But what I also need to do is validate that this is returning the GUID of that requirement, right? So I kind of have, normally I do a result and a subject, and you only have one result and one subject. But here I kind of have two results. So I'm tracking the planning item when I actually update it. So this is the creation of it. This is kind of the dummy object. And we use the object builder because this is got no public constructor, no property setters. So this is actually dynamically setting those fields. Then we capture it when we actually update it. So if we weren't to update it, hi Junicus, how you doing? Private GUID, private results. Right. So I want to capture. Right. Backed. Requirement identifier is returned. So what I'm doing here is assert.equal. And this is planning item dot requirements dot single requirement dot identifier is going to be result dot value. Doing good, finally some internet. 2 days in that the power company has been working on the neighborhood and they took power where the ISP was. Oh. That's not cricket. So we'll now modify this to be a result of GUID. And that'll be GUID. And then we'll return. Oh, that's a challenge. Thank you for the luck, Mr. Jones. Appreciate it. When your design comes to bite you. So I don't have the identifier. High school is capitalizing variables convention in C# or just class members. So within a method, you're going to see camel case. When we're using a record, the parameters are always capitalized. In a regular method, parameters are camel cased. If you have a private variable, So if I was to have private int equals 100, I'd have an underscore. That's a general convention. These are properties of the command. Command is kind of a weird. A record is kind of a newer structure in C#. But these effectively become properties, but it's immutable. In theory. Do I inherit? So yeah, I've got two options, which I don't like either of. That's my preferred option. So the problem here is I need a planning item ID. And then add a requirement there. And then we return requirement dot identifier. That's not too much of a sacrifice for what it gives me. And it's probably clearer. Because if the requirements, if the fields of requirements change, my planning item has no reason to change, right? I'm just saying here, you're going to take a requirement and you're going to add it, you're going to track it in your own list, right? And again, I'm only doing it that way to kind of represent ownership, and it's not really much of a benefit there now. The intention was that this owned adding the requirements, that this didn't have to, so the planning item did it, but I don't think it's actually, because there's nothing really stopping me now from doing that. But then I would have to have a planning item repository. Yeah. It's cleaner. See, all I'm doing right now is I'm kind of experimenting with the way I'm dealing with the objects, because I have these the events that publish, right? So when I add a requirement, I publish an event, a domain event, and that gets put in. It's a mediator notification right now that gets picked up when the item's saved, and then is used to, in this case, publish an integration event to Kafka. So I'm just kind of experimenting back and forth as I go forward with how do I like to do this, because there's a lot of functionality in this entity. But this is the pattern I am seeing. So I think I'll leave that there for now. We'll leave it as is. Sorry. So this breaks a little bit now, because why does that break? Oh, because that needs to be a result of GUID. Okay, so that shouldn't. Okay. So that's now able to return a GUID. So now here we can say this is going to be okay with GUID. That's going to be result.i. Okay, so let's start that one back up again now. So the reason I need that GUID again is to track it in the client side. So because the client side, when it creates something, it puts it in the store. If I don't have that identifier and I go and edit it or whatever, I have no way of knowing that this thing is the same thing. So when I add it, I have to get the response back with the identifier before I proceed. Otherwise, that's not in a good state. So see, I'm using a lot of this project to experiment with new ideas and new concepts as well. So new concepts to me, not new concepts in general. I'm not trying to come up with some crazy new architecture styles. So now the requirements do that. We can go to the client, right? So what we need to be able to do is when we go in here, we need to be able to create, and we'll see a dialog fly out, and we'll do an add requirement. Yeah, let's do it that way. So, oh, what don't you like now? Okay, so that's, so return this .http.post tracked entity response. Actually, let's validate what tracked entity response is. Comes with an identifier. So that's just a response GUID. Is an appointment event-based system to be able to have your entities separate and not as dependent on each other? ID floats. So I'm not sure the eventing aspect of this system is very much things changed. What I'm trying to do is kind of provide ownership. So a requirement does not have any standalone behavior. It is attached to a planning item. I'm not trying to go into DDD. I'm not trying to go into aggregates and all those sorts of things. So I'm not trying to go too deep down there. What I am doing is mimicking. So what we did at the beginning of this project, or earlier in this project, not the beginning, but earlier, we kind of refactored, and we looked at some clean architecture examples. And what we noticed was, I noticed, I'll speak for myself, but I did raise the fact that if you look at 4 different examples that all claim to be really good examples of clean architecture, they all differ just a little bit in how they do things. So there's no real set way of doing those things. For the purpose of the events in this system are very much to, there's a few things, right? There's the notification events. So those events are, hey, something within this component changed. So I'm not trying to develop microservices here. This is very much mini monolith, which has started to become more widely used as a phrase. So each component of my system, right? So I have planning, tenant management, tickets, view. right? So planning has events that fire within inside of it, right? So when I change something, these events fire. Now I can do other things with these entities. So within the application, what happens is if I have subscribers, so these are subscribing to those notifications, and then I kind of folder structure them as, this is the thing you're subscribing to. And right now, this is mainly publish integrations. I think there is one in tenant management that is basically there was one, but the idea being that I could do other things on these events within the domain itself, within the component itself, right? So again, I'm not saying mini monolith in that these are mini applications that may have one or many services, right? So there's an API, and this planning only has an API, but the view has consumers. I heard it be called micro monolith. So again, people try and coin new phrases, or they'll change it a little bit and decide that they think it's another thing. So mini monolith is something I've actually used for several years, but I've heard it mentioned more recently because microservices, because I never hooked onto the idea of microservices, the concept being a single kind of function, essentially, with its own storage, etc. I think that's too hard to manage. Especially from my perspective as a single developer, right? So I kind of like this style of breaking the application up into separate components. And intentionally. So a component could have one or many services. So in this instance, the tickets has an API. It also has consumers, because this listens to Kafka events, right? So when a planning item is added, a planning item created, we publish an integration event for that, and that event is picked up in Kafka, and anyone listening to it gets hold of that, right? So there's receivers for different things, because when I create a new tenant or I create a new user, those are things that each system might need to know how to represent to make sure its data is valid. And then the view. So the view is, this is very much I think at this point I can actually say this is very much CQRS in terms of the commands all come in, their data stores are their data. Then they publish events out to the larger system, to the public representation, and then the view recompiles these. So the view has consumers, which receives the things. And then it compiles it down, and then this is a GraphQL API that allows me to query. So each microservice is actually a gigantic monolith, and they all tie together with duct tape and tears. I think any system, once you get past the initial development, starts to become about duct tape and tears. Like, I'm trying to fight the urge to do some pragmatic things, right? There's things I could do in this, like just throw code in there and make it work, right? I'm trying to fight that urge because it's not beneficial, especially this early on in the application stack, right? So, yeah. But one of the things, so when it comes to the planning stuff that we were looking at before, right? So the requirements. So one of the things I'm trying to do there is kind of represent ownership and keep the patterns clear. So you can't create it. So now I'm going to have to change this because of the way I've done it. But what I do is you can't actually just do var rec equals new requirement, right? I want to take away that ability because I want to control certain things. Like I want a date time default. I want an identifier defaulted. So there's no, if you do it this way, you lose kind of some of the control. And also because I want domain events to fire, I'm trying to keep a hold on these things because I want to know. So in this instance, I'm creating a requirement I'm adding a requirement, I'm firing a domain event. So I don't want to expose any different methods, mainly because when I come back to this application 6-7 months down the line and I've got more than 8 or 9 components in the system, things are working, I've got all sorts of data flowing around the system, it's much easier to go in there and make a mistake by just changing a value. Whereas if I'm meant to have an event fire, right, I want to make sure that happens. So I'm kind of trying to hold to those patterns so that it allows me to keep the API clean and cut down on those potential mistakes later. So what we need to do is create an... So you've created a requirement. Will this not fire off another event rather than having... Well, so the requirements right now are tied to they're very much tied to the planning item. So again, there's no benefit. A requirement has no standalone value. So the planning item owns the requirements, and so I do publish the planning item. Right now I publish the planning item from both the requirement added to planning item and planning item created. And it's the same publish, right? They just have different sources. So I'll once I do this a third time, I'll refactor this to make sure this isn't just duplicated, because this is obviously a risk, because I could miss a field in one and not in the other, right? But the idea is that each event gets published and it has a source. So even if it's the same event, it identifies where it came from, so I can do whatever I need to do there. And ultimately, these aren't actually they're just termed integration events because they actually are publishing the data. So I'm not publishing the source is the only indicator of why it changed, right? Because the consuming systems, so I don't use Kafka as a necessarily reactive, hey, this was added, this was changed, this was added, this was updated, etc. I'm using Kafka as here's the current state of the data, consume it, right? I can infer changes wherever I need. I am using mass transit, just because, why not have a few more technologies at play in here? So when a planning item is added or updated, I do publish a mass transit planning item was updated event. So I am using mass transit for inventing stuff globally, right? Right now it's only this local, but I have another change to make later on when we get to tickets. But mass transit is publishing an event, and that is consumed within here. And what that does is it actually pushes a notification down to the client. So when I get an updated planning item, it will actually publish a notification. And what that does is it triggers the store on the client side into a dirty state, and it will then refetch the data from the GraphQL endpoint. And also you'll see, if I add a planning item or an updated planning item, eventually it will, it should indicate here. So once we add this new item, we should see an indicator. Right. Thank you for the follow, Scooby Snacks. Appreciate it. So let's see if we can get this dialogue in here. Yeah, no worries. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for the chat. Yeah, we were getting there. So this is a requirement that we need a planning item ID. Just happy to have you in here for more than 30 minutes, defaults. The requirements are requirements. Should be requirements. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
So we post the body, and then we have title, the requirement. Oh dear. Okay. Um, new is redundant there. As opposed to adding an old planning item. So the intention here is, so what I want to do is, again, list the requirements. So a requirement is a title and a definition of what that requirement means. Ultimately, when these become stories, those requirements will be picked up and used as kind of acceptance criteria on the story. So they're kind of aimed at being, they're not aimed at being like war and peace, but they are aimed at being descriptive enough to show intent. The story will also have images and notes as well. So the planning item rather. So I'm going to like tabulate these at some point. And if it comes from a ticket, this would also show the ticket. So that's the guide. Not going to worry too much about how nice the UI is, because I think that, again, what I want to do is get this functional and kind of looking reasonable, and then I want to go and hire a UI UX person and have them design something. Because I could spend, like, I respect one line for doing so much on that UI side, and the attention to detail and the care, and I just don't have the patience. I think that's a talent I do not possess. So I'm not going to come up with any decent UI. So I'll make it kind of work for right now, and then I'll kind of get the idea, and then I'll hire someone to go through it with me and design it out. So we now need to add a requirement. So we need add planning item. So this is going to be an add requirement. Just because I'm spending time on it and has the patience for it doesn't mean the end result will be a decent UI. I will still have talent, but you're focused on improving there as well, right? That's one thing that you're taking great pride in and taking care in. So for me, I'm just like, I want to do the coding. I don't want to do the messing around with the UI. And once I got to the certain point in this, I'm like, I'm not going to worry too much about it, because I'll just spend so long. Like, these buttons are driving me crazy. Something I've done has added padding to the bottom of these buttons, and they're too big, and it's driving me nuts because they've got like saggy bottoms. It's driving me crazy, but I'm like, I can't focus on it. Now no one else can unsee that, by the way, so you're welcome. Those buttons are going to irritate you as well now. You could do a co-pair stream with the Coppinger. I don't think I'd want to drive anyone else crazy with this. Okay, so add planning item. Look at those paths. That's because I have the shared components for the slide overs and stuff, and that's just the way this is. Okay, so what we are going to do is we are going to have There are a few things it could be, but that wouldn't be easy to do without having the dominant code pen or something similar. But if there's an extension to create a pen out of a site that you're on, that would be convenient. It's just fun to have you in here for over like 30 minutes. So let's have a look. So this is an app slide over. So I make the entire, I'm just going to copy and paste. It's going to be way quicker, right? So we can remove the contents of the form for the most part. That can go away. So this is going to be add requirement. Add a requirement to planning it. Okay. So we have a form. Let's do that. Standalone false. Did I make that standalone? I did make that standalone. Let's just leave it standalone for now. I need to go back over and change that because it's meant to be part of the module. There's no benefit having the planning add a requirement to a planning item exist independent of this module. So, but for right now, it doesn't really make a difference. Intended outcome. Okay, so that's that. We don't need. I still like doing public in front of it. I know that it's not a standard. At some point, I'm going to end up with a need to write better code there. But I can't help myself. It's just like, it's public. I'm going to tell it it's public. I like the explicit nature of it. I don't know why they got away from that. So I know there's one bug in the way that resets. Okay, so there's got that. That's form closed. We got submit, and that's intended outcome. I think my UI is ugly till this day. I mean, again, in the way application development works these days, how do you have the brain power? Like the people who have the brain power to not only develop a complicated application at scale and design it and make it look nice, I respect. But again, I doubt there's very many people that are truly great at all those things. I always write the visibility accesses or whatever it's called for properties and methods accepting interfaces. Still don't use internal enough. I think there's actually some. Oh no, there was some internal. I actually used some internal stuff inside of this to try and prevent. So things like the requirement, right? You wouldn't want to add the requirement outside of planning item. So initially, I actually made these internal, but it actually breaks things. Is this? I mean, it's functional. Do you and Sito align on the color scheme? Isn't that the exact same color? Gotcha. So it's the component lib. Okay. But yeah, I mean, again, I don't think it can be. Okay. So when we submit, let's have a look. Submit. So, okay. So we need a few more parts here because we need to do, so in the view planning items, when we add planning item, right? Okay. So we do have the requirement, so we can do an import, import, and I've not started focusing on UI design, which is just not fun for me. I'm hoping it gets more fun when I get better at it, if I get better. Again, I think you have that focus that allows you to kind of drill into that and learn and get better. For me, CSS and even the client side code in general is just a means to an end. So I want to write good code, but I know that anyone who does this for a living would look at this structure probably and be like, that's kind of terrible, right? So just the structure alone, let alone the way I'm laying out styles, the way I'm doing the building, the actual views, etc. There's probably 1,000,001 different ways to do this. The most important thing for me is that can I build this now? Because even if I get a UI UX person, they come in and say, well, this pop out design, that doesn't work very well. It's not accessible. It doesn't do this. Or here you want to do this. You want to navigate or whatever. I've still got all the functionality, right? Will it be a pain to reorganize it? Absolutely, right? So there is something to be said for having a design up front. But being that I don't know what I want or what I need, I've got two options. Spend the time trying to think through those things way out in advance and try and, because I've got a general idea of where I'm heading with the entire project, but I don't have the specifics of some things. So some of the things I'm kind of working through a few weeks ahead rather than a few months ahead. But I don't have enough definition on that to go to someone and say, hey, can you design me a UI, right? So as long as I've got the functionality, I think it's more than reasonable to kind of do it the way I'm doing it. But would it be nice to sit here and tinker and get that layout and that like this is rough, right? This is practical. Tom Cook is still up there when I should have a user profile by now, but I'm not really focused on that. My best days as dev was when I was doing WPF in 2010-ish. Those were great days. Well, WPF is, hi Rodrifer, thank you very much for the follow. Appreciate it. Welcome. Anyone new to the stream, if you've not been here before, conversation is a component of the stream. You're more than welcome to join in, ask questions. I'm more than happy to show you what I'm working on, or describe the project. So please feel free. Not for my work product. We're using WPF, please work for you. But WPF is one of those technologies that Microsoft, I can't remember where I said it yesterday. I think it was in Sato's chat because they were talking about WPF and stuff. But it's one of those technologies that I don't think Microsoft can quite decide whether they're going to scrap it, update it, or just let it stagnate and disappear. And I think that's the problem with a lot of the Microsoft technologies. We have so many different ways of doing things, and Microsoft seemed to put some work into them when people complain about them. The WPF is not that, it's just an assisted living. Right, but yeah. I get it. XAML, and Maui and whatever. Yeah, it just makes it confusing, I think. So this is add requirement. So why does planning item store not have? Because I don't expose it, right? Okay. They do a lot of stuff. I'm getting the theme into work. Right? Yeah, it's pacing, add requirement. It might seem wordy, but it's fine. Requirement goes to where are you going? No, that's not how functions work. So it's kind of Walking Dead then, because everything is new is in Blazor. Anyway, I enjoyed it. It's pretty good at it as well. Yeah, I mean, but like WinForms, right? WinForms, they scrapped it. Then they realized, we can't quite deprecate this yet. So let's bring it back and update it for the new frameworks. Okay, so right now, all I'm going to do here is I'm going to pass this through. What am I doing wrong here? Oh. Alt is that. And then, I don't like doing these. Because essentially, requirement dot ID equals result dot identifier is what I was doing. And then I need to add the requirement onto the planning items. But I don't. Yeah, it's a little bit more involved than that. Still VB6 apps around with millions of lines of code. Yeah. I'm a bit disappointed on the state of desktop dev right now. I'm not sure why not. But none of the UIs uses dev in like the WinForms to be PF days. I think it's just that shift away from one thing. Now it's all the things. That's why people like Blazor, as it's kind of the easiest way to build UI right now. They'll have the visual design element. Yeah. See, I don't see how Blazor is easy. Like someone asked about Flutter before. Like I've enjoyed using Flutter. I think many people think it's because they use their HTML skills. Yeah, but even with Blazor, it's a playing to deal with some things, especially when hot reload doesn't work half the time. Blazor isn't super easy because Blazor has different modes and Blazor has different quirks to it, and you have again, like editing it is an absolute pain. A lot of the examples stuff the database right inside of the actual code. You've got the code in the markup, which I know you can make the code behind because I do it every time, but by default, all the code's in there. So a lot of developers are not going to even do the code behind thing, right? So you end up with code and markup. And that's why I was looking at, originally with this, I was going to look at using analog.js, right? But then I learned that analog.js, everything's in one file. So your CSS, your markup, and your code are all in the same file. And I'm glad I dodged that because that bugs me, right? Just from an organization perspective. It's just chaotic. Blazor got lots of quotes if you want to write some kind of internet front end, yeah. I didn't do the code behind, I do not like it. I actually don't mind as much, actually. That really is a matter of architecting it correctly, not necessarily only a Blazor issue. Right, but my experience of Blazor so far has not been a good one. Every time I've gone near it, I've had to learn, like, things have not been as easy, and Microsoft changed the APIs, and drastically as well. And I haven't had that experience with other frameworks, right? With Angular, I don't see that happening all the time, apart from the Angular JS to Angular structure change. But yeah, but I need to do server-side rendering while I'm in server versions of Blazor. You can put all your JS in one file or in a script tag, for example. Yeah, Blazor is just web forms too. Add requirement. Okay, so we don't need to do much there. We can go here now, and this becomes add requirement should become. So this needs a planning item identifier ID. We're not going to reword it there. Bring. And then as requirement, we can remove that. And then we can say that is intended outcome. My biggest excitement for Blazor is when I use the server version, I don't need to write APIs. I'm so sick of writing APIs. Yeah. I mean, I think probably my experience of Blazor has just been because I've used it randomly over the years. It's just not been good every time I've gone near it. I don't like, I definitely don't like any code that shows the database, the DB context right up inside the Blazor code. That drives me crazy. I know that if you're doing server side stuff, then yeah, and it kind of is on the server, but it just still feels so janky. I don't use the DB context, I use SQL connection. That's nice. Open. We need open. We need the slide over. Wow. And yeah, never do that. I never put DB context in razor files. That's crazy. Right, but most of the examples that you see in Blazor have the DB context right up inside the razor files, right? So what that means is a lot of application dev is going to happen that way, right? So in the years to come, when you go and look at Blazor apps, most of them are going to have that style. Again, not Blazor specific, but using Blazor server side does make it easy to fall into that pattern, right? And I bet there'll be a lot of applications out there that look like that. Oh crap! 9 o'clock. Oh, I did not realize the time. So our main use case for Blazor server is internal support tool. We need to be able to deliver maximum bang for the buck, as the support tasks will never be prioritized. So I need to do them on the side when I get 5 minutes over. Yeah. I do think it's pretty terrible that a lot of tutorials reinforce this behavior. Yeah. and people will mimic it. Alarms is fine. I was going to do some code testing today. So that's that. That's that. That's a submit. That's open. So now, for the most part, that should be it. All tutorials tend to promote the quickest way to complete the task, but not the good way. Right, but I haven't seen, and I'd love if you guys have any, if you can post them in the Discord. Any tutorials that explain how to handle DB context correctly when developing a Blazor server-side app, right? Like when you're developing when I'm doing the WASM stuff, right? I'm using APIs, which created its own set of issues with state and whatnot. But that was that's an aside. But I'm more than happy to look at them because again, we're doing the Blazor WASM stuff in Water Drink Water. Maybe that's one where we can look at a different, well, correctly is always subjective because everyone's got an opinion. But yeah, right. A lot of tutorials are just like, here's how you can set that up, assuming that the people watching them are very new to C# and are not really going to understand architecture anytime soon. Right. But I haven't seen anything I haven't directly aimed for it, but I have looked at a lot of Blazor stuff over the years, right? ChatGPT, how do I do good architecture? Oh, man. So, let's do this. Let's do app add requirement. Planning item ID equals planning item.id. Then what we do is so we need an identifier, add requirement component, add requirement form. So then when we click create, no, this is not working still. Oh, I was going to say, that's too good to be true, that. There's no way that works first time. Okay, so we go to planning items, we go here, we hit create, and it errors. That went well. Add requirement, form group, submit. In theory, okay. Form group expects a form group instance. Please pass one in. What do you think I'm doing? Oh yeah, I'm not creating a form group. That'll be why. We need on in it. Implements on in it. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. The dots do suggest shove it in the Razor file. Right. So again, my concern there is it's not so much you who are coming into streams like this who are looking for
other developers that do the same sort of stuff. You're not the problem. The problem is the developers that pick that up to try and do it quickly, develop applications, and then you go and get into a job that we're using Blazor, and you get in it and sit there thinking, oh dear, what did I just do? I also tried to follow a good pattern with the finance management project. It's similar to your code structure, interfaces for services, repositories that do the actual server functionality, client-side implementations, server-side implementations, all the server code in its own library, all the UI code in its own library with only UI-specific things in code behind files and service calls to get data perform operations that need to be done on the server regardless of whether it's running server or client-side. Yeah, I mean, good organization and clean organization. Again, I've said it a lot, right? What matters the most in any code base is that you, as a developer, can read it. If you're a solo dev and it's never going to go beyond you, then if you cut corners, that's on you. But the most important thing is, can you read the code without comments, without great deals of explanation? Can you pick up the code and work with it? And if you can, and you can work with it comfortably, like adding these features, this feels natural. I can add these features. It doesn't feel like I'm fighting the system. And I really have learned to think that anytime I feel some pain from trying to develop something, that's normally an indicator that I'm doing something wrong and I should reflect, right? But if you're developing with other developers, right, it's very important that everyone can work through the code. So organization, it's all about the team that you're working with. It's not what someone else thinks code should look like. But unfortunately, there's a lot of developers out there that are just going to follow what they see, right? So they are the risk. I'm going to go and get a large drink of water after I finish this stream. So we can create. Okay, it still says description. We're going to get rid of that quickly. Intended outcome. We're going to make the intended outcome box a lot bigger as well. I don't know if using reflect. In my team, some people think that putting business logic in SQL Server is the right way. Some think it's wrong. Good thing is we have a decision where to put it. Right, and as long as you're consistent, and as long as you are all comfortable with where it is, that's fine. I personally think, there's actual pieces for this application right now that are stored procedures. When you add a new tenant, it does a duplication check, and it uses the tenant name and the address details to determine whether that tenant's actually a new tenant or exists already. I didn't want to do that code in the C# side. I put it in a store proc. Well, some are not comfortable with the choices. It goes against what they believe is true, but they endure. That's the main thing, though. Sometimes you have to accept that things are a way for the benefit of the team. I don't think there's any. Okay, so need to see a pop-up. I think requirement is added. I don't really. Oh, undefined. Okay. We're almost there. I just want to, just one more minute. I can do this. So why did that go through as, so the right side, pass it in.
talking about tenant stuff, when are you planning to do the UI for registering a new tenant? This one. You can register a new tenant now. I'm no slacker. So right now, this won't change anything, right? When I hit create, even if it does go through, it's not going to get added to the store. It's not going to, ultimately, what it should do is it should change the state. So that'll be the next step, getting it to change the state. I will then be able to edit it. In theory, I don't have the edit stuff available right this second. So we're passing in undefined. So why are we passing in undefined? Let's go back to, no, not layout, forms, add requirement. So we do not have a planning item ID, maybe? Create. Okay, so planning item ID is undefined. So why is planning ID identified? Hold on. Oh dear. That'll be it. So when because right now what happens is when I go in and click on one, I actually make another call and load the planning item again with its requirements. The idea being that I will patch the store eventually. So, actually persist requirement. That's looking healthier. So navigating away from here and back should actually yield. That one was just a breakpoint. I need to get more comfortable with navigation. The struggle I'm having with the navigation tells me that. There you go. So there we go. We've now got a planning item. We can now add a new requirement to a planning item. So I'm trying to think about what I want to do from here, right? Obviously not much right now, but I do have decisions to make, right? Do I worry about editing, right? Should I worry about being able to edit these items right now? So now when I come into a detail, I should be able to edit the planning items, should I be able to edit the requirements, etc. Should I be able to delete requirements, right? Do I focus on those pieces or do I focus on moving forward? Now,
the intention for this right now is not to worry about the promotion, right? So I do not need to worry about getting these to the point of creating a story. The first step here is to make planning items an actual usable piece. Then, because stories are, way bigger, but there's things like notes. I need to add notes. I need to add uploads. Do I keep moving forward with the addition of things? Or do I actually stop and start to move back on the edits and the deletes of things, right? The benefit of moving forward with the ads does allow me to expand the actual depth of the application and allow people who are coming into Stream as well to kind of see what it's all about. Because right now it looks kind of I'm adding to-dos basically, right? But what does it mean? Why am I doing these things? So adding in things like image uploads or file uploads, etc., being able to see them, being able to add notes onto the thing. These are all kind of key pieces of the application stack. I mean, they're more fun, but maybe I do need to step back and do an edit and validate the updates, because there's a few behaviors in here that I need to validate, right? So we did get the authentication working. So GraphQL, we do have notifications working through GraphQL right now. We're not doing specific Signal R. But we do get the piece working where it will only publish notifications to clients that actually that care. When are you going to start dog feeding it? If you probably need a way to move a state so that you're filtered once done, maybe delete. Yeah, I probably do need to. That's a good point. That's actually, maybe that's my goal. Maybe, so MVP for this is way out, right? There's no way that I get anything that's a viable product for several more months. But what takes me to the point where I can actually start to use it and use it to build the things I need to build? That might be a good measure. So, if I was to do, let's say I was to do planning item, add editing of planning items. We have a planning item. If you start using it, then you can see if you want to change something in the design, you might find something that's annoying and want to improve, stuff like that. Right. Yeah. I think that might be a good measure. So I think that's actually probably the best path, is to kind of figure out, what do I want? What is my minimum value? Not my MVP, but what is my minimum viable product for me to actually use it to build the minimum viable product, right? So what are the requirements? Well, I need to be able to track planning items. I need to be able to add notes. So I think I'm kind of answering. So it's not so much prototype at this phase. It's more. It's kind of like a pre-MVP. It's more of a, because I've got a big document that I just don't share because it's the ramblings of a mad person, right? So I do have a big document where I kind of noted down all the things I actually want to do. The goal again is basically, the planning items are to try and collect information and gather requirements, right? That's the entire point of the planning item. The planning item is so that those requirements are gathered, described in a clean way that the developers can look at and say, well, hold on, that requirement doesn't make sense. That requirement doesn't make sense. And then when it comes time to build stories, those stories are promoted from planning items, right?
When we're putting in the description may be wrong, we need a button to edit the. So if I put in the ability to upload images, right, that gets into the realm of using cloud services and stuff like that, because there's no way I'm doing that local. Maybe if you use a project management system of some sort. Where is it? Sorry. I'm trying to move away to cough. My current project management system. One of the 200 tabs. I'll have you know, there's only a couple of dozen right this second. Across 2 windows. So yeah, I'm using this right now to track these items. Yeah. Also, if you have your planning items for this project as in a real one, you can use it for the other parts too, yeah. So, yeah, edit the... So this would be 03 29 2024. Assign user would be me. Create that. Oh, I got that quick. Okay, Junicus, thank you for stopping by. Appreciate it. Allow edit of title, the title. So maybe I need to attach files to requirements as well. I have a long weekend thanks to other people. Nice, nice, nice. It's cool. I actually just booked off my birthday. Thank you for the follow, Kotlin. Yeah, I think we might need just immediately that requirement right there says that it would be beneficial to have attachments to requirements rather than having attachments to the item. They would kind of be attached to the planning item by virtue of, but yeah, I like it. Yeah. Okay, it's 25 past 9. I'm running over again. The problem is I'm getting feeling productive with this, so I'm enjoying myself. And by enjoying myself, I'm overrunning. So I'm not sure if any of you celebrated, but here we have a religious celebration that's so widespread that we have a day off. Oh yes, you would take Easter very seriously. Yeah. So we have a tradition ourselves for Easter Sunday. We eat Chinese food, which is kind of a nod to a past story, but our Easter tradition is Chinese food. Visible in the top right corner. So this is one where the requirement definitely come with the benefit of having how quick does that get there? So I'm requesting that every time right now. So there you go. So that's not instantaneous right now, because when that fires off, that goes up to the planning item system, gets added into the planning items, produces an event. That event is published to Kafka. The requirements, the view consumer picks it up, consumes the event, and you can see it actually updated. So that's interesting. I could actually get the update there. Viernes Santo just turns out it's the same day of Easter, so not really sure if they're related anyway. Okay. Good Friday, yeah. in the where I'm from, they used to. Good Friday was a local holiday, so they kind of shut things down. But here, no. Schools are closed tomorrow. Okay, so I'm gonna finish up here. I need to take you all off for a ride. I need to start doing some more shout outs because okay, Junior, because there are so many great streamers. You know, One Lion, Kani, who else is in here today? The streamers. Actually, not many of you have been in here today. Mr. Jones streams, CMG Chris Jones, rarely. But I want to get into, what I wanted to be able to do is produce kind of, I want my developers.stream app. I want to build that and then have kind of, lists that pull out the actual stream. So I can say, hey, go here and follow these streamers. See, you could do. You're a very entertaining guy. You could actually have some success with streaming, especially with Blazor. Your Blazor expertise are solid. Okay, who did we rated? We rated Simple yesterday. Canny's streaming. I think we should go see Canny. Let's go hop over to Canny. I will be back tomorrow. I will see if I can get some more work done on this evening. If not, we'll pick it up there. As always, welcome. Thank you very much for coming and hanging out. Thank you for the conversation as well. We had some fun conversation. Sorry, I'm going to go get some water. So we'll raid over to Canny, and I'll be back tomorrow. We'll continue on with this, and we'll get some more stuff done, which is starting to look the part. Take care, all. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.